He hadn't planned to go to the wedding alone. In fact, just a month earlier, he had convinced himself he wouldn't go at all. Weddings had a way of reopening doors he'd worked hard to keep. Shut, memories of promises made, rings exchanged, futures imagined. But when the invitation arrived, thick cream paper with gold letters announcing the marriage of an old college friend, something inside him stirred. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was loneliness, or maybe it was the quiet voice of his 8-year-old daughter, Anya, who had looked up from her homework and said, "Papa, you should go." Mama used to say you shouldn't hide from happy places. That sentence alone had done what no argument could. So here he was, standing in front of the mirror of his small apartment, adjusting a navy blue suit he hadn't worn since his wife's funeral, wondering when life had become something he merely survived instead of lived. He was a single dad now, no dramatic backstory for the world, just a man who packed school lunches, checked homework and whispered goodnight. Stories while pretending he didn't. Missed the sound of another adult breathing beside him. The wedding venue was extravagant, the kind of place that made you feel underdressed no matter what you wore. Crystal chandeliers glowed like frozen fireworks. Laughter echoed off marble walls, and couples arrived in pairs, hands intertwined, leaning into each other as if the world couldn't pull them apart. He felt it immediately, that familiar pinch in the chest. Alone among togetherness, he straightened his shoulders anyway. For Anya, for himself. He took a slow breath and stepped inside. That's when he heard it. "Look at me!" The shout cut through the music and chatter like a crack of thunder. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Even the violinist faltered for half a second. He froze, heart jumping, because he knew that voice. Everyone on his floor knew that voice. He didn't need to turn around to picture her. Bold, unapologetic, always slightly too loud for polite society. His neighbor, the woman from apartment 3B, the woman who argued with delivery drivers, laughed too freely on her balcony, and once yelled at him for not attending the building meeting, then showed up at his door later with biryani as an apology. Slowly he turned. She stood near the entrance, framed by the tall glass doors, wearing a deep red sari that looked like it had been stitched out of confidence itself. The color suited her dangerously well. Her hair fell in soft waves over one shoulder, and her eyes, sharp, expressive, impossible to ignore, were locked on him. People stared, whispering already, but she didn't care. She took a step forward, chin raised, daring the room to judge her. "You walked in like you were invisible," she said loudly, her voice carrying. "I said, look at me." He swallowed. "What are you doing here?" She smiled, slow and knowing. "Same thing you are. Attending a wedding I wasn't sure I should come to." Her gaze flicked over. Him, from his polished shoes to the crease in his suit, lingering just a second too long. "You clean up well, single dad." Heat crawled up his neck. "You didn't have to shout." "I did," she replied calmly. "You were trying to disappear." That hit harder than he expected. Because it was true. He had mastered the art of being present without being seen. At school events, at work, in life. She stepped closer now, lowering her voice, but not her intensity. "You know," she said, "people don't realize how brave it is to show up alone, especially to places that remind you of what you lost." He looked at her then, really looked. Not the loud neighbor, not the troublemaker, but a woman who seemed to see straight through the cracks he hid so carefully. "You don't know what I lost," he said quietly. Her expression softened. "I know enough." They stood there, an unexpected pair, while the wedding swirled around them. Someone cleared a throat nearby. The violinist resumed playing. Life moved on. But for him, something had shifted. They ended up seated together. Not because they planned it, but because the universe, or maybe stubborn fate, pushed them into the same row. She talked easily, telling him stories about the bride, about how she hated weddings but loved good food, about how she refused to let life dull her edges. He listened more than he spoke, surprised by how natural it felt. For the first time in years, he wasn't counting the minutes until he could leave. Then came the moment that cracked him open. During the vows, when the bride spoke about finding love when she least expected it, his eyes burned. He blinked fast, jaw tightening. He felt it before he saw it, her hand resting lightly over his on the armrest. Not gripping, not demanding, just there, solid, present. He didn't pull away. "Hey," she whispered, barely audible over the music. "You don't have to be strong all the time." Something in his chest broke loose. He nodded, unable to speak. When the applause came, loud and celebratory, he realized he was smiling. Not a polite smile. A real one. The kind he thought he'd forgotten how to wear. Later, as guests lined up for photos and laughter filled the air, she leaned closer and said, "You know, people are already talking." "About what?" "About how the quiet single dad showed up alone, and somehow didn't look alone at all," she smirked. "Careful, you're becoming interesting." He laughed, actually laughed, the sound surprising even himself. And in that moment he felt it, a small, dangerous hope. Before the night ended, she looked straight at him again, just like earlier, and said softly this time, "I meant it when I said look at me." Sometimes life puts someone in your line of sight for a reason. As he drove home later, city lights blurring past, her words echoed in his mind. He didn't know what this was. He didn't know where it would lead. But for the first time since he became a single dad, his heart felt awake. And if you're watching this story unfold and you've ever felt invisible, ever shown up somewhere, alone with a brave face, hiding a heavy heart, this story is for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because Chapter 2 is where everything changes. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.